We talked about players. We talked about teams. We're going to talk about another player and another team. We mentioned him earlier, man. A bunch of talk. I think this team is really at a crossroads because they got to figure out, do we really want to trade this player? Do we really want to trade him now? Because clearly the NBA deadline, the trade deadline is coming up the 10th. So we're less than a week away. Do they want to trade this player? Is it best to ride it out for this year to see if they can win an NBA championship? Because he is an NBA championship level player. Is there a chance that you lose him in the summer? Because now it's talks that, he's frustrated with his role and he doesn't necessarily know if he wants to continue playing with the franchise because he has a player option at season's end. We talking about James Harden, man. We talking about the Nets, y'all. Like, let's have a little round table talk, talking about the Nets. And I got a simple question for you guys. Should the Nets trade James Anthony? I don't know what his middle name is, but James Harden. Should the Nets trade James Harden? Go.
Yes. And it's funny we talk about role players because, and I just dropped this link in the chat, courtesy of ESPN.com. They have something that I actually like looking at. Everybody who's listened to the show know I'm a numbers guy, and I like.
Look at this. This is why your picks are so good.
Things develop over time, and James Harden is about to turn into a role player eventually. With the way he plays, let me rephrase that. He will turn into a role player on this team. On the Nets, and he's not ready to be a role player just yet, but if he stays with the Nets, they're gonna turn him into a certified role player on behalf of Kevin Durant, and if they keep Kyrie Irving, but I can see them bringing in another young star to grow James Harden, and not really necessarily put James Harden as a bench player, even though it really doesn't matter. It matters who's on the floor at the end of the game. But I can see him being that guy that's like one of the fourth, fifth options.
His role lessens over time.
Yes.
Which, what's funny, Zay, that you talk about that, because I read a recent report that he feels like James Harden we're talking about. He personally feels like he's asked to do too much by the Nets, because when he initially came to the team, he was thinking, hey, I'm gonna be a part of a big three. I'm not gonna have the pressure or the weight on the world on my shoulders like I had when I was in Houston, where he had to be triple double every night. If you remember, in Houston, every night he had to get a 40 piece. He had to get 10 plus assists. He was their point guard. He was their scoring guard. He was literally everything for the Houston Rockets. I think him being traded, he was officially traded. Him coming to the Nets, his idea was that, hey, I don't have to play that huge of a role in terms of facilitating, scoring, doing all that I did for the Rockets. So I think he actually, to your point, wanted to have a little less of a role, less, I don't want to say pressure, but he had to have less of pressure to perform at that night in, night out level that he did for the Rockets. And now he's having to do that for the Nets because KD's out, Kyrie, he's playing half of the games. Like, it's a lot to ask. So I think it's been a little draining for him, and he's been in a situation where he has not wanted to do what he has been asked to do necessarily. Right.
And to that point, honestly, I feel like with that being said, and he is, being 32 years old and really almost on his way out. I think some miles, a good team, going back to the original question, like, yes, he should be traded, but they need to trade him purposely. A good trade, and this is going to be my last point, I think he would fit well on a team like the 76ers. Get him a ring, get Embiid a ring. That's already a put together team, and he would be perfect because he wouldn't have to do too much, but he could do just enough.
I love it. BG, same question for you, man. What should the Nets do with James Harden?
I'm conflicted, man. It's a tough question to answer because I agree with Zay and all his points. I think eventually he turns into, if he's on this team, he turns into a role player. If Kyrie's playing a lot, I think Harden's the third scoring option. I do. But if you're the Nets and you're trying to win a ring this year and you're not sure Kyrie's situation with the vaccine mandates and all that, I don't think you can. If you're the Nets, I don't think you can trade Harden right now. If you're the Nets trying to win a ring, I do not think you can get rid of Harden because, let's say they trade him to the 76ers for Ben Simmons. Are you more confident in Ben Simmons coming in and playing with Kyrie and Durant when he's healthy, and Ben Simmons giving you a better shot at the ring?
Yeah, and it's a team you potentially would have to face in the playoffs. You're in the same conference. Yeah,
and then you're giving a team in the 76ers who's like, what, third or fourth right now in the East. Mm-hmm. You're giving them somebody who's actually going to play in games versus, Simmons is sitting out right now. So Simmons would play for the Nets, but Simmons is not going to play for the Sixers. And then you're going to go give Harden, who could go, like you said, mesh very, very well with Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It is an ideal trade for the 76ers. But if you're the Nets, you can't give somebody else an ideal situation.
Do you think, because I do think for the 76ers, it's a great move.
Who wins the trade? Who wins the trade?
So that's a part of my question. Like, answer this. Like, does Ben Simmons fit in Brooklyn? I think he could be a nice little fit in Brooklyn.
Maybe.
Me personally. I mean, what do you think? You got to pick a side. Like, to me,
I think the 76ers would win that trade.
Okay.
Yeah, the 76ers would easily win that trade. I think
do the Nets benefit?
One of those things. I really wouldn't expect it to happen in the season. To BG's point about the playoffs, that's like detonating your own bomb and potentially meeting them. That'd be crazy. But still, like in a summertime trade, like Harden going to a team, it would definitely work out. I think the Nets, they would also probably, they would get Ben Simmons, but they would probably squeeze, maybe even add a third team in that trade. But they, Seth Curry could end up in that deal or something. Where you got a guard with another shooting guard. So
the thing
if
is,
you throw Tobias Harris in there, I mean that's impressive.
You're gonna have to. Look again. I don't know how the financial side of it works or the contract numbers. Clearly people are piecing together Harden for Simmons somehow, some way. Like, that's the big trade everyone is kind of hoping for. The problem is for the Nets is that they have until February 10th to get this done. If they don't get it done, then all the cards that the Nets have they're off. All the chips are off of the table. That means that Harden now has all the power because he has the player option for the summer. You can't trade him in the summer at that point. You cannot do that unless you're talking a sign and trade where Harden agrees to it, basically. So you have another week for the Nets to really make a decision on whether or not they want to get it done. On one hand, yes, he helps you in theory to win an NBA championship. On the other hand, if he's not happy, he's not playing at his best, and you lose him in the summer for nothing, then this experiment failed. So
yeah,
I don't know.
That's the thing that makes it interesting is they have 4 days now, 3 days to get it done. It's a tough call, but I think if you're the Nets, you gotta sit back and say when healthy, you have the best big three in the league.
Yeah.
And you gotta roll the dice on this year and try to win a chip this year. And then if Harden leaves you, But
I tend to agree on that, BG. I do. Like you put all this time, effort, these resources into these big three, these three superstars coming together. You gotta ride it out, bro. Like,
here's the thing. Harden can say he's upset, but he doesn't have a championship ring.
No.
So if the Nets are contending for a championship ring, he's not going out there playing at half of his ability.
No.
He's going to go try to win himself a ring, and then he'll leave.
Winning cures everything.
It does.
It really does. It cures a lot. Trust me. If they are on a 7-game winning streak instead of a 7-game losing streak, I guarantee we're not having this conversation. So clearly everyone's frustrated within that franchise because they're just simply not winning. They're not winning like they expect they would be. But we'll see what happens, man. I'm excited to see how it plays out, like I'm sure most people are, because we have no clue where it could go. I can get an ESPN dun alert tonight where I could see it being Harden being traded right now. I could also see a scenario where, they play it out and Harden celebrating with a NBA championship at the end of the year. So we'll see.